Being a high achiever can bring you many accolades and a lot of accomplishments. But if your drive is motivated by people pleasing, perfectionism, and a need to prove yourself through your work, then that will lead to a lot of negative stress and over functioning. Dangerous situation. We're going to talk about it today on The BraveHearted Woman. Hey everybody, this is Damon, and this is my show, The BraveHearted Woman. Thanks for stopping by. Hey, each week I bring important topics for women just like you to help you live with courage and confidence and bold vision for your future. So make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm always giving out free resources that empower you. So you ready? Come on, let's get brave. My guest today is a certified life coach who's passionate about working with high achievers to heal their relationships with, well, themselves. As a recovering perfectionist and a mother of 5, she's going to tell us about her children. She can relate to the overwhelming thoughts of never being good enough. And today, her mission is to empower other high performing adults to become the resilient self leaders that they are meant to be. Would you please welcome to the Brave-Hearted Woman, my guest today, Kamini Wood. Hi there.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm eager to hear all about you. And I want to know your story because your story starts in a small town in Connecticut where you say you grew up in an Indian family in predominantly a white town. I can only imagine a town where you were the one with the dark skin and the dark eyes and the name that seemed odd. And that had to have done something to you, shaped you in some kind of way. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. It shaped me in ways that I was not aware of course, until I was older. But as I entered elementary school and recognized for probably the first time really that I was different than my peers, there was a part of me that went into problem solving mode because here you are, a little child, a little girl who
Yeah,
just wants to be part of the group, who wants to be accepted. And
right.
so the way that I worked through that as my 5-year-old self was to people please, was to make sure everybody was okay with me. If they were happy, then there was this internal idea that I'd be accepted. And, that was internalized because I was being rewarded for that. The more that I showed up that way, the more it felt like I was fitting in.
Mhm.
And so that shaped part of what was going on. And then, of course, also being a daughter of immigrant parents, they were working very hard. They worked pretty much from, 7 in the morning until 6 at night. I was quote unquote the latchkey kid where they would drop me off at latchkey in the morning and I stayed there before school. And then I was picked up after school and had after school care. There's no complaints on my part. It did not bother me one bit. I look back on my childhood with only fond memories.
Mm,
However, part of
good.
the internalization that happened was, wow, my parents are working really hard. I don't want them to worry about me. Part of that is my own personality. I am a caretaker by
Sure.
nature, totally own it. And yes, it was part of me when I was little too. And so that part of me of not wanting to be a burden took on a lot of perfectionism as well, because I needed to make sure that I wasn't burdening them with having to worry about anything that I needed or mistakes I was making. So the more that I could ensure that I was doing things the right way, the less my parents had to worry. And so
Mhm.
people pleasing perfectionism took hold from a pretty early age. And again, they kind of shaped how I showed up, not just in relationships, but just I was an overachiever. I worked really hard. I strived to do the best I possibly could. Those are not bad things. The only reason why I bring them up as why I say I had to bring them to the forefront, though, is because as I became a mother, my children started emulating those people pleasing perfectionism tendencies. And I was starting to see how they were negatively affecting them because their anxiety was on the rise. And I
Mhm.
recognized that they were mirroring back to me how I was showing up. And so that's when I really went through my own self transformation. Through that process, I recognized that from a professional standpoint, I was a project manager. I was running project manager offices. I was running a law practice. But in every role I had, I always found myself trying to help people figure out what they wanted, how they could grow, how they could evolve in whatever position they had within the company. And so the self transformation actually was the doorway to say, oh, wow, what I really am meant to do from a professional standpoint is to serve people and to help them understand themselves better. And my journey gave me that wake up call that, hey, Kamini, this is actually what you're meant to do. You were meant to go through this journey, not just for yourself to grow and not just so you could show up differently as a parent and help your children grow, but now you also can pay it forward and serve others who might not be able to see what's holding them back.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Very true. And I couldn't help but think when you were talking about how, so often our worldview is like formulated by the time we're 7 years old,
Yes.
right? It's
Yep.
established. And so you learned that, hey, if I keep the peace and help people and please everybody and keep everybody happy, I can be a blessing and I can be appreciated and I can help lift the load. That's the beauty side, but there's always a shadow side, isn't there, to some of our drivers and our
Mhm.
motivations and things.
Mhm.
And so, I got to tell you, I talk to women all the time who are in midlife and beyond. And man, we still struggle with the shadow side of that motivation, people
Yes.
pleasing, don't want to rock the boat. And like you said, at the end of the day, I don't really know who I am now. I'm
Mhm.
trying to make everybody else happy. And I need to go on a
Mhm.
transformational journey to figure this out. What do I
Mhm.
keep? What do I
Mhm.
refine? And what do I reframe and say, that does not serve me well at all? So
Yes.
you could see it in your kids. Tell us
Mhm.
a little bit. You have 5 kids. You have a couple of kids that are high achieving, performance driven.
Yes. So my oldest at the time that we're recording this is 22. She'll be 23 later this year. She's a professional ballerina. And then my second oldest is 20 years old. He turns 21 this year. He is a Division 1 college athlete. And then I have an 18-year-old who's headed off to college this fall. I have a 15-year-old who's also a lacrosse player wanting to play in college. So we'll see how that goes. And I have a 10-year-old who's about to head off to middle school come the fall. So we've got the range of ages going on. But yeah, my two older ones really are high achievers. So I understand this world really well. And that's the thing that I always say to people when we're working with high achievers, we're not saying don't be a high achiever. But to your point of these motivators, any motivator, any strength, absolutely are those things. When we lean too far into them, they can then start to become a weakness or can then start to become something that holds us back. Right. Like
Mm-hmm.
I say, one of my strengths is my empathy. If I lean too far into it, it becomes over functioning people pleasing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. That is so insightful. I love that. And so you stumbled on all of this, or is this part of your college profession? You are a life coach. How'd you
Yes.
figure all
Yes.
that out?
How did I figure all this out? Well, okay. So the truth is, when I was 7 years old, I used to sit there saying, I just want to talk to people and make them feel better. That's what my 7 year old self said. Now, I ended up not avoiding it, but kind of distancing myself from that because I felt like there were the shoulds, go into the business world, right? The business world is where it's at. And
Yeah.
so that's what I did. And I'm not faulting it at all because guess what? I end up finding out, even in the business world, I still migrated to helping people figure out what they needed
Yeah,
and how they could
you're just
grow,
an
right?
empath, right?
It was just, I was going to find a way to it at some point. So actually, it was the combination of the professional and then the personal stuff that was happening in terms of just doing my own work to be like, what is going on here? Wow, I've spent a majority of my life over functioning. I'm over functioning and now my kids are over functioning. What do I need to change? And so
Mhm.
I had just from that point dove headfirst into life coaching and understanding what that could be. And then different modalities, understanding the cognitive, behavioral side of coaching. Internal family systems is one that I love in terms of understanding the parts of us because I'm a true believer in yes, self-esteem and self-confidence, but it's all really about self-acceptance. Can I love all parts of myself? Right. And so for me, it was
Love
just
that.
going back into learning and absorbing and training. And so people joke with me all the time, wow, you have a lot of certifications. Yes, because I'm a nerd at heart, first of all. But second of all, I love to learn this information and I do it in a way. And the reason why I go and learn these different modalities is because each one of us is different. We are going to assimilate and understand information differently. So for one person that I'm working with, I could approach it with like an IFS based way, but another person gets too caught up maybe in their thoughts and we have to go somatically, use the body approach, go bottom up. So for me, I've trained in so many different modalities so that I can serve people where they are and really truly honor who they are.
Yeah, I love that. That's really great. And so then I have to ask you, then how do you balance it all for you? You've got your personal life, you've got a thriving coaching practice, your work. children. How do you keep yourself in balance?
That's such a great question because I think at first I struggled, especially because the high achieving part of me was really just like go, 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 go.
Right.
I really hold myself accountable for taking time every single day. Every single morning, there's an appointment with myself, and it's just for me, myself, and I, where that hour to hour and a half is just for me. I'm not on, I'm not having to serve anybody. I'm within my own, whether it be working out, meditating, reading, just sitting and drinking coffee and just being. It can vary day to day, but that appointment with myself is one that it's one that I honor, and I don't really let it waver. I say that with the caveat that every now and again, there are moments like last night where I was driving my son back a lacrosse game in Charlotte, which is 3 hours away, and we didn't get home till 12:30. That hour may have become 20 minutes this morning.
Yeah, fair. That's fair. I'm right with you. I teach on the power of a morning routine. For me,
Yes.
my rituals, my morning
Yes.
routine, all the
Yep.
things that you just said. And when I have a routine, when I have guardrails, I know the path. That doesn't mean every now and then I don't drive off, do a little tracking in metaphorically speaking, but you
Right.
get back on path, you get back on the road.
Yes.
So when we
Yes.
travel or, I'm speaking, I'm
Yes.
going here and there and I don't
Mhm.
have that time. But, I'm up to I need 2 hours in my morning, only
Mm.
just because, as a woman of faith, I want to spend that time with my creator. Then I want to spend that time with me. I want to journal my thoughts. I don't know if you find this to be true, but as a journaler, sometimes I figure out what's going on inside of me and what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking when I see myself start to write some of my
Oh,
feelings.
absolutely.
Have you
Oh,
experienced that?
absolutely. Absolutely. Because what happens when we start to write it out, now our brain has the output channel and it's coming out. And I let myself free flow write, meaning
Yeah.
there's
Edit.
not editing or, is this okay? Or wait, maybe I should change. Nope, just write and let it come out because there's so much truth that comes out in that way.
It's so true. I've got women, I encourage them to journal and then they'll say, but what if someone reads it? And so they're making these really nice journals and all these little sweet things that if somebody sees it, they look really, and like, oh, I'm so in tune. Like, stop it. Don't do that.
Yes.
Let it flow. I love
Yes.
that. So we're talking about some of those struggles that we have, and I wonder about self-sabotage. Do our
Mhm.
habits, sometimes we say we want something, or, our careers contribute to our self-sabotaging habits. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah. I view self sabotage as a protective part. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of times we will self sabotage almost to control what we perceive will be an inevitable fallout, right?
Mhm,
Where we don't want to get blindsided or hurt. So if we end up doing the thing that stops progress or success in something, right? The self sabotage, we then know it's coming. We can almost brace for it, and no one's going to blindside us with it.
mhm,
This happens a lot of times, I've noticed with clients, especially in relationships, where a relationship is going really well. And then out of the blue, they do something that just, breaks trust maybe in the relationship. And then they even say to me, Kamini, I don't even know why I did that.
mhm,
And really it's because the fear part, the part was where it was, I don't know that this will stand the test of time or that it
mhm.
will succeed or survive. That
Right.
part got really activated. And then this self-sabotage protector part said, well, we don't want you to get wounded. We protecting you from the wound of being abandoned. So we're just
Mhm.
going to go ahead and do this thing. Then it's coming. The breakup's coming. You can protect yourself. The truth is it still hurts, right? And you also
Yeah.
you shut down any future potential that you had
Mhm.
trying to control, right? Trying to control what was going to happen. And that's really what happens with self-sabotage too, is it's a control mechanism. Can I
Mm.
control what's going to happen? And we have to remind ourselves that we don't control all the things. What we
Yeah.
do have control over is how we respond to a situation,
Mhm.
but we don't have control over how the situation is going to evolve.
I hear you saying that. It almost sounds like trauma response too, for those
Yeah.
who have some childhood trauma. And I guess who of us doesn't have some sort of trauma? But I'm talking about, like for me, I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. So that trauma manifested itself in my relationship, in my
Mm,
first marriage,
mm,
which was 28 years long, but I could see early on before I really had gone through my healing journey, and it's still an ongoing journey, but there was a bulk of the work that was done where I started to see my beliefs, my core lies, those things, relationships can really take a hit, can't they, when we sabotage, like you just mentioned. Where else do you see the self-sabotage? We do it in our jobs, our
Oh,
relationships,
absolutely.
our money.
Absolutely. I think it comes up in many aspects of our life. We might self-sabotage health-wise, right? Like we might want to take care of our health, but then overeat, or we find ourselves maybe imbibing in too much alcohol, for instance, and it's a self-sabotage mechanism. Workplace, self-sabotaging, keeping yourself from moving up in terms of your workplace, because there's this fear of, well, if I get that promotion, for instance, I don't know that I can do the work. So let me go ahead and just almost destroy any opportunity I could have for that promotion, because I don't want to get hurt or have to deal with the idea that I'm not succeeding at this, or I might have to ask for help. Right. So again, it's a control mechanism. It's also this protection mechanism. But yeah, I think the one thing that I would say is that with self-sabotage, people will constantly say, I want to stop self-sabotaging. If we want to stop something, instead of we would have stopped it already if we could, right? So the idea, it's a shift. Okay, I'm noticing the self-sabotage isn't serving me. So if I got curious about the self-sabotage, what's behind it, right? What is the story, the narrative, the false belief that's driving that? Because once we become aware of that, we can take different actions, and we can start to show up differently. We can take values-based actions. So for instance, in a relationship, if we have a self-sabotaging pattern, we get curious about it. Maybe we do realize, wow, there was this past trauma. There's a belief that I'm unlovable. And so every time I'm in a relationship, I'm falling into this pattern of thinking, this person can't possibly love me, so I'm just going to figure out a way to end it. Again, subconsciously. We
Yeah.
just bring this to the awareness, though, and we say, well, my value is meaningful relationships. I have a value. So what committed action am I going to take? I'm going to be present, and I'm going to communicate with my partner, like what's going on for me, right? I'm going to open up communication. That's my values-based action. Now we're working towards undoing that limiting belief of I'm unlovable, because we're actually engaging in an action that not only loves ourselves, but we're working towards creating that lovable connection with our partner.
Yes, and isn't that rerouting our brain too? I know with neuroscience and the plasticity of the brain and all the things that we're learning, we are healing our brain when we come up with those reframes, those more powerful affirmations, if you will, but then we start giving ourselves new evidence, new actions that says, okay, see, we can choose this. We can
Yes.
go this way. It's uncomfortable at first, but after we say, oh, okay, I can make a choice based on my values. I'm not just a victim of impulse. I can interrupt that and say, I want to do this,
Exactly.
right? Yeah. So those are great techniques. You help your clients do this all the time. You help them reduce stress and overcome their anxieties. And you also work with imposter syndrome. Are these all the things that are in your wheelhouse, obviously? What can you share with our listeners about some of the things you've learned about all of that?
First of all, one thing that I have really like to share with people and to have them really hear is that it's normal. Right. I
Mm,
think so often people will come to me and they'll say, there's something wrong with me, or I'm broken, or I need to, this is just, I need to fix this. Those are all ways of shaming, right? That's shaming oneself. And so it's really important for people to recognize that things like imposter syndrome, things like feeling not good enough or not enough, for instance, those
mhm,
are common things that as the human race, many of us, I'm not saying all of us, but many of us work with and work through. And so it's
mhm.
important to have that element of self-compassion where we're saying, hey, this isn't abnormal. It's a growth zone for me. And that's the very first thing that I would want to share about how we work through it. But the truth is, in terms of how, and, while working through it, one thing that I usually say is I'm somewhat different, where I don't say we're going to stop these things. I just mentioned it a couple minutes ago.
Mm.
Instead, I say, okay, there's a part of us that is doing that. Let's again get curious with it. Let's recognize that this is just a part of ourselves, and we can take the stance that this part's not serving me anymore. Maybe it served us for a point. Like, I will freely admit, my perfectionist part absolutely served me really
Mm.
well until it stopped, right? Until it was actually holding me back.
Yeah.
There are moments where my perfectionist part still will come online, and it actually is in service of me right now when I don't lean too far into it, but you learn to calibrate it. So it's not always about
Yeah.
getting rid of things. It's about how do you learn to either live with it or find that relationship with those things. Because, like, for instance, anxiety is not going to go away. And truth
Right.
be told, some anxiety keeps us safe. The anxiety over traffic filled
Yeah.
streets will keep us from crossing the street and getting run over.
Right.
So if we said, like, oh, we need
Exactly.
to get rid of all my anxiety, we're actually doing away with something that could be of service to us as well.
Yes. So all those things, I want to shift just for a moment because at the top of the time we talked about you and your beautiful brown eyes and your dark skin, all things that I wished that I had as, a very white-skinned, redheaded, freckle-faced little girl growing up. But diversity is one of the passions of my life. What did you discover then? How did you get back to your authentic you? What did you discover about your beautiful Indian parents, your Indian heritage? You had to have made peace with all that as well.
Yeah, such a great question. And I really appreciate you bringing that into the conversation because I do think that it was a struggle growing up. So I'm American born, right? So I'm in this town. We're one of two Indian families. So even culturally, things were different, because my parents were raising my sister and I with the traditional Indian culture and heritage.
Sure.
And there was definitely a part of me that wanted to, like, tap it down and, like, let's keep that secret, mom and dad, because people are going to think we're weird. It wasn't until I hit emerging adulthood where I started to notice that I have an identity where I get to almost be both, where I am American, absolutely, but I have
Mhm.
this beautiful Indian culture as well. And then, truth be told, becoming a mother allowed me to recognize that there is so much depth in the Indian culture that I wanted these children to also be
Mm.
able to experience. And they happen to be children of mixed backgrounds. So for me, it was, oh no, I want them to be able to continue this because this is part of the uniqueness of who I was and who they are. And if we look at just the human race, yes, we're all human beings, but we all have a unique quality. There's one message that I'd love for people to hear. It's, hey, your uniqueness is actually the gift that this world needs. Because that's the lesson I learned,
Yes.
was that uniqueness allowed me to be my own person and allowed me to be, yes, different, but not different in a bad way, different in a, hey, this is me and you're you, and both of us together can coexist. And what a beautiful thing for that to
Mhm.
be possible.
It is beautiful. And, that is something that pleases the heart of God. For me, I love seeing all of diversity that is in this creation. And I'm so thankful for you and for your messaging. What would you say to, and you've said it a lot, but as our time is pretty much gone, people don't listen to podcasts as long as they used to. But what I'm hearing today is that there is a way to live this life without anxiety and stress. There is a way to make peace with ourselves and that people pleasing part and that perfectionistic part. What would you say to the woman who isn't there yet? She's still living maybe behind a mask of people pleasing. I got to be
Yeah.
something that you expect me to be. I can't be how God really created me to be or what's authentic for me. Any
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah, I would resonate with that woman because I think that that was me for many years. Was it's not okay, it's not safe for me to be. What you just said is a beautiful way to look at it though. God creation, right? Like God's creation.
Mhm.
What is it that I really need? What is it that I really feel called to maybe put out into the world as God created me? Ask those really important questions.
Yeah.
And then as those answers come to you, then ask yourself, okay, what's one step that I can take towards that?
Mhm. Love it. Thank you for being with us today. And where can somebody reach you? They say, hey, I really dig what you're saying and I want to talk with you. Where can they
Yes.
find you?
I am on the web at kaminiwood.com and on Facebook and Instagram with the handle It's Authentic Me.
All right. I love that. Authentic me. And you put that as all one word, right? Authentic
I
me.
do. Yes.
I
Yes.
love it. And of course, we'll always have that in the show notes for you. Thank you, Kamini, for being with us today on the Brave-Hearted Woman. You are a brave-hearted woman. You show up with courage and you radiate. I love your smile and your sass, and we'll make you an honorary member.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Hey, all you Bravehearts listening, again, check out braveheartedwoman.com, my free gift for you there. As always, if you are lacking confidence, get your free gift, Ignite Your Confidence and Soar with Self-Esteem, my ebook. It's there for you. I'm going to leave you like I always do. This is Dawn Damon, your Braveheart mentor, saying it's time for you. Find your brave and live your dreams.